Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Democratic Elections Commissioner for Onondaga County today. Welcome to Commissioner Carr, the last stop for the even year election lawsuit. We'll be talking about that in a second, but today is Tuesday, September 9th. It is 55 days until Election Day. Yes, there is an election in 2025. All your local elections are in 2025. And that kind of segues into the even year election law case. Those of you who've been following this know that I'm a participant in a lawsuit, a defendant in a lawsuit, where that the New York State Legislature at the end of 2023 passed, or at the end of session in 2023, so June of 2023, passed a law that over the next 4 years will start to move almost all offices that are not judicial or constitutionally protected offices like DA, county clerk, and sheriff, or the cities that have a constitutional protection in them. They're moving them from odd years to even years. And I've gone into how that is going to lay out several times in the podcast. And I will go into it again after we get a verdict, because now this law was signed late in 2023 into law by Governor Kathy Hochul. It was immediately brought a lawsuit by Onondaga County as well as Suffolk County and a whole bunch of other counties that did not want their elections moved to even years. These are county taxpayer-funded lawsuits, and those lawsuits have been ongoing. There was in October of 2024, or September, something like that. Judge Neary in Onondaga County, who was hearing the case, overturned the even year lawsuit, and that is saying it was unconstitutional. I am a defendant in that lawsuit because Onondaga County is the lead plaintiff and sued me at the Board of Elections along with my counterpart, then Michelle Sardo, now Kevin Ryan. The Republican commissioner sided with the county. I did not. And so I was afforded my own attorney to defend the law. I also support the law, so there was that. And so I've had an opportunity to be a participant in this. Well, my attorney has anyways. There was this case went to the appellate division to rule. The state of New York appealed it to the appellate division back in March or April. I can't remember which, but it was around that time. It may have been May. It was in that time period that the appellate division ruled on it. They ruled on it with a 5-0 bipartisan unanimous decision to overturn Judge Neary, and that uphold the legislature's right to set the elections for local offices in even years. So that was actually kind of surprising to me, because to have that be so unanimous and so bipartisan, but I did believe it would be overturned, but I didn't think it was going to be 5-0. And now the defendant, or the plaintiffs, the counties, have decided to continue on with their. They are now getting an appeal of the appellate division, and now we are now at the last stop at the Court of Appeals. Now, again, it started off in Supreme Court in New York. Supreme Court is the lowest court, and then it's the appellate division, and then the Court of Appeals. So the Court of Appeals, if you're looking at the national version, it's like our Supreme Court. And so yesterday we had oral arguments where the attorneys presented their case orally to the 7 justices on the Court of Appeals, and that it will be alive, or that it was streamed live, and the link to that will be available on the Court of Appeals YouTube channel on Monday. I believe I saw that on their website. So if you want to revisit those, I'll try to remember to post a link once that's available on my social media feed, so you can judge for yourself. But a little caveat here, as lay people, and I'm not a lawyer, as lay people, we tend to put a lot of value in the oral arguments. And the oral arguments, they're great TV. They're, and we're used to, these big dramatic moments on TV or in movies in these courtrooms. But really the work on these types of cases, on most election law cases, are the papers. They're the papers that are submitted by both sides. This law is going to be decided on that. But there were some interesting arguments at the oral arguments. It seemed to, the judges ask a lot of questions. The lawyers respond. The judges seem to be asking a lot of questions about whether this is a general law, which would apply generally to everyone, or a special law because it only applies to a few people. The crux of that matter seems to be that there's an exception in the law for towns that are contiguous with villages, which is a very small number of towns. And the reason that exception is in the law is because, the villages are not being moved in this even year election law. The argument that my side is making is that that's a reasonable exception because there's so few, I think a dozen towns out of hundreds of towns across the state that this is affected by. And the reason is because those towns are contiguous with the village. The village is the actual entity that is seen as the main government function in that area. So why move the town to the evens if you're not moving the villages? You might as well wait till that happens. And that might happen in subsequent legislation if this is upheld by the Court of Appeals. And that was one argument. There is a lot of arguments that that somehow that the New York State Constitution protects the towns, even though it's not explicit in the Constitution that it protects the towns like it does the cities from this, that there's a municipal home rule law, but the home rule law doesn't specifically say that this has to be a referendum. So this is where the crux of the argument is. There is one particular argument that I want to address in this podcast to tell you why I'm so much in favor of this law. And there was one argument from one of the lawyers, one of the plaintiffs, that they wanted to have a factual hearing on whether this law would increase turnout because of ballot drop-off. And it wasn't really well argued on either side. The judges didn't really, I think, grasp what he was saying, and I don't think he articulated it very well. But what I believe he was trying to say is that, sure, there's going to be more people going to the polls in even years, but we know that from the beginning of the ballot to the end of the ballot, there is a drop-off. And because this will be on the end of the ballot in an even year, that more people will drop off and not vote than would actually turn out and vote, or it would be a very small turnout difference. That there was never a factual hearing on this matter. And I think that's his main argument, is that he wanted to have a factual hearing, and Judge Neary didn't, for some reason, give that to him on that. But because he ruled the law unconstitutional, and the appellate division didn't give him this hearing. However, I think even if this hearing happened, it would show that they don't have a leg to stand on factually. They didn't provide any evidence that that their theory is correct. In fact, the only evidence in record is the academic papers that were put into the litigation record, or the legislation record, showing that that's not the case. But I have a specific instance in Onondaga County. I just happen to have this that shows that not only is that not the case, it's still dramatically more people will vote on a local election in the even year than an odd year, despite the ballot drop-off. Let's take this. The town of Clay normally has elections in in odd years. But in the year 2024, they had what's called a to-fill vacancy election in the November election. There was a town councilor race that the councilor resigned, and so it had to go up for a vote in 24. It doesn't wait to the end of the term. There was an appointment by the board of a Republican, I forgot his name, a Democrat named Dave Capria ran for that office. He ended up winning. What's interesting about that is the year before, in 2023, Dave Capria also ran, but he ran for town supervisor, which is actually a higher level race than town councilor. And one would argue that a supervisor race would get more attention than a councilor race, no matter the year. Here's what this found. So these races are similar in the sense they're one-on-one races, a Democrat versus a Republican. The only real difference is the office that they're running for, and you would say that the town council office in 2024 would actually be a lesser office than the town supervisor office in 2023. Both run town-wide in the town of Clay, one of our biggest towns, by the way, our biggest town in Onondaga County. They have about 40,000 voters in it. Well, for the Clay 2023 supervisor race, there was 10,125 votes cast. So about 25%, right? About 40,000 voters. I don't remember how many voters there were back then in 2023, but Clay has about 40,000 voters. So in 2023, this one-on-one race for the town supervisor had 10,125 votes. In 2024, the Clay Town Council race, with Dave Capria running again, and he ended up losing the supervisor race, but winning the town council race. But more importantly is the number of people who cast votes. Despite a drop-off from the presidential ballot, and I don't know how many people voted on the presidential ballot because I didn't have that much time to do this research before I had to do this commissioner in a car. But it doesn't matter. Because what we're talking about is how many people will cast votes at the local level in an even year. 30,527 people cast votes last year in this one-on-one race, Clay Town-wide. One of the candidates is still similar. And so here is, while it's not quite apples to apples comparison, it's like apple to almost apple comparison because it is pretty close. And what we see is 3 times the people vote in a presidential election as in an odd year election. Now, I don't have a example from the last time there was a gubernatorial election because Clay didn't have any offices up in 2022. But if this, one of the theories is that people who vote in presidential elections only care about president and they're not going to vote down the line. Well, that's just not true. We can see that, right? And also, there are going to be drop-offs, but there's going to be drop-offs in the gubernatorial year, but there's going to be even less drop-offs because instead of 75% turnout, we're going to have 52% turnout or 60% turnout, as opposed to 33% turnout or so in an odd year. So at the end of the day, more people are going to vote on the local races. More people. There's no mathematical, there's nothing truer than saying that. And of course I reject some of the other notions about how the people in odd years are specially attuned to, town issues and that they're not attuned to town issues in the even years. Look, they're all citizens. They get to vote. They get to choose. And whether they're making their choice based on party label or making their choice based on a name they know or an incumbent or whatever, or a town issue, they're making their choice. And that's the most important thing, having the more people make choices. Because then if you have more people make choices, you're making better choices that reflect the values in your community, no matter what those values are, whether you agree with those values or not. Maybe their value is that they do want to vote for a Democrat over a Republican, or a Republican over a Democrat. And they aren't that concerned about local issues, but they are concerned about the tendency of how somebody might act when they're in office, whether liberal, Republican, conservative, Democrat, whatever. These are choices they get to make. They're not choices I get to make. I don't get to make that out in Clay because I don't live in Clay. I live in the city of Syracuse. And so I've always argued that more people voting is good. Anything that we do that allows more people to vote is good. There no qualifications here. Not a more Democrats get to vote, no more Republicans get to vote, more non-enrolleds get to vote. No, it's more people getting to vote because every person is entitled to representation and the representation of their collective choice, the majority choice in that area. So here's an example right here that specious argument is just, his main argument is that he didn't get a chance to have a factual hearing. My argument here is that even if he did, he was going to lose that factual hearing. So what happens now? Well, the oral arguments are done. The submissions are done. The responding paper to those initial submissions are done. So now it's up to the judges to issue a decision. Normally, it can take anywhere from 45 to 60 days for the Court of Appeals to reach a decision. On election cases, they tend to do it a little quicker. But this case does not affect this year's elections. While it'll affect the term, it doesn't affect who's on the ballot this year. So there's no real rush. And also remember that the the appellate court overruled Judge Neary. So the law is in place right now. So the assumption is that these terms are going to be truncated to move to even years. The voters have been told that, informed that. They're not, or if they want to be informed of that, that has been out there since May. So there's no real risk that if they wait till after the election that somehow people are be in jeopardy. And my guess is that easily this decision will be made before the end of the year when people are going to decide whether they're running again next year or not. So I don't necessarily see any rush to get this ruling. I do hope that we will get a ruling before Election Day. I think that would be a good finality in this case. Get this done with. We do have to question about how much money is being spent on this lawsuit at some point. My lawyer is being paid for by Onondaga County. Onondaga County is also paying for their lawyers. Other counties are paying for their representation. I kind of quipped that this is seen almost as a wealth transfer of county taxpayers to GOP lawyers, because I don't believe there's any merits to this case. But again, I'm not a lawyer, definitely not a judge. It'll be up to the judges to decide. And after that decision, I think we will need to have an accounting of how much money Onondaga County spent here, or all the counties spent here. I think that's something that people should know. I know that my lawyer is spending a decent amount of money too, because they are participating in the defense as they should, as the county should. But it was the county who brought the lawsuit, not New York State. So all the counties brought the lawsuit. So the expense of this is being borne by the taxpayers. Whether you believe that this is a proper expense is up to you. So there's that. And that's the end of that I'll say on that. We'll wait the ruling. When we get a ruling, I'm sure I'll be on this program telling you all about it. That being said, we're now on to the general election, as I've said. So I'm going to try to wrap up. We have 55 days until Election Day. Every end of this podcast every week, I'm going to wrap up with important dates for you to remember as a voter. Remember, we talked about the races. You can go to our website, onvote.net. The candidate information, there is a candidates list. There are not ballots yet. We are creating the ballots now. Why are there not ballots yet? Good question. September 11th is actually the day that the New York State Board of Elections officially certifies the last bit of races. These are the races that cross county lines in the Supreme Courts. We have a few races here in Onondaga County that cross those county lines. So we couldn't officially create a ballot until after that. That doesn't mean that we're not working on it. We've been working on it and we have it ready to go. But once they certify the ballot, we will then proof all of our ballots, send all of our ballots to New York State to take a look at. And by September 19th is the first day that the first vote by mail ballots would go in the mail. These are usually military voters and UOCAVA voters. These are voters that are overseas and special classes of vote by mail that are guaranteed to get a ballot at so many days before the election. Those have to go out by September 19th. Following that day, our vendor, Phoenix Graphics, will start to send out the 6,000 or so vote by mail ballots that have been applied for in the first batch. Those will go out over that weekend and Monday, so around the same time period. We hope to have sample ballots on our website by September 22nd. The reason we don't have those on now is because the ballots aren't finalized, and once we get them finalized, we have to get these military ballots out. That's our first thing. Then we will put sample ballots on the website. So the week of September 22nd, hopefully right on September 22nd, we will have sample ballots prepared for you on our website. And then every day we will send out vote by mail ballots for all the new absentee and vote by mail applications that we get in. We put them, we get them in that day, we process them, we send them out either that day or the next day, depending on when the applications come in. The next big day to remember, and really, for a month there, the whole voting system is all vote by mail. Then on October 25th is Golden Day. Saturday, October 25th, it's Golden Day because several things happen at the same time. It's the last day to register to vote. So if you haven't registered to vote, haven't changed your address, whatever, that's the last day to do that. It's the last day to request a vote by mail ballot and be guaranteed that we will mail it to you. It's also the last day that the vote by mail online application will be active. So the easiest way to request, by midnight that day, it'll be shut down. And it's also the first day of early voting. And so that means Golden Day, you can actually go to an early voting center, vote by affidavit ballot, and that is you are registering to vote and voting on the same day. We verify it later, make sure it counts and gets counted after the election, but it's part of the final vote counts. So if you wait till the last day but still want to vote, you can wait till the last day to October 25th, that last day. You can go to any of our 10 early voting centers and vote by affidavit and have it count. Early voting runs for 9 days from October 25th to November 3rd. It is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on most days. There's 2 days that are noon to 8. I believe it's Tuesday and Wednesday in between there. But when we get closer to early voting, we'll have a nice little special on early voting. And then, of course, Election Day, November 5th, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., the longest election day in the nation here in New York. So you have so many opportunities to cast your ballot. Yes, it's a local year. Yes, I expect lower turnout. But that doesn't mean that you won't have just as many opportunities as you have in a presidential year. You can vote by mail at will. Remember, if you applied to vote by mail last year, you got to apply again this year. It's a yearly thing. It is not. You don't get it. You don't get it every year unless you have signed up for a permanent absentee. So if you don't get that ballot September 21st, 22nd, 23rd, give us a call or call us now to make sure you're on the list. 315-435-VOTE, VOTE. You'll be able to track on the website whether we got the ballot, whether we issued you a ballot or whether we got it back. not what you count, because that won't be done until 9 o'clock on election night. So you can vote by mail. You can vote early on the machines at 10 locations for 9 days, all throughout Onondaga County, and you can vote on election day. So at the assigned poll site that you are assigned to. So that's it for Commissioner Carr this week. Next week, September 16th, we'll be talking about the imminent issuing of vote-by-mail ballots. And so that will be my vote-by-mail special next week. We'll be talking all about vote-by-mail and how it works, and I'll go into it in more detail than I did just now. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day. Go to DustinZarney.com to subscribe. You can get an email notification anytime I put out content, or go to any of my social medias to see this Commissioner in the Car and any news articles that are relevant. Take care. Bye-bye.